Hello, Algebra 2, and welcome to our last section of Chapter 7, which is Statistics and Statistical Graphs. So we're going to start out talking about your three measures of central tendency. And those are mean, median, and mode. And they're called measures of central tendency because most often they gather around the center of the data, so that they tend towards the center, which is why they're called measures of central tendency. So we are going to be dealing with statistics, which are numerical values used to summarize and compare sets of data. So like we can compare the mean of two sets of data or the median of two sets of data. Okay. Remember, the mean is the average. We're going to be using this symbol called X bar, like there's a bar on top. Okay. The median is the middle number, and you do need to have your numbers in numerical order to find the middle number. Remember, if there's two middle numbers, you take the average of those two middle numbers, so add them and divide by 2. And then mode is the number that occurs most often. So here we have some data. The number of games won by teams in the Eastern Conference for 97 and 98 during the regular season of the National Hockey League. I would like for you to find the mean, median, and mode. I don't necessarily think that I need to go over that, but this is going to be your quiz questions on your video, so make sure that you found the mean, median, and mode for those three things. So the next step is measures of dispersion, and dispersion would tell you how spread out your data is. So the one that you probably know about is the range. And to find the range of some data, we're going to take the greatest number, the highest number, minus the smallest number, and tells you how far the data is spread out. So that's the range. The new one we're going to add is the standard deviation. And the standard deviation describes the difference between the mean and the data values. So how far is the average from the rest of the data? So to do your standard deviation, you're going to have all of your data points. So, your first data point, your second data point, all the way to your last data point. And you're going to plug it into this equation. And so you need to make sure to have this equation written down. So this is a lowercase sigma, and he's going to stand for standard deviation, equals the square root, your data point minus the mean, that number then squared, plus the next data point minus the mean, that number squared, and on till the last data point minus the mean, that number squared, and you're going to divide it all by n, which is going to be how many data points you have, and then square root it all. So you do need that written down. Okay. From here on out in the video, I'm just going to give you the notes parts, and we're going to do the examples in class. So if you want to go back to your NHL data and find the range, that'd be awesome. And if you want to try to find the standard deviation, that would be excellent. And if not, we'll do it in class. So we're going to do a couple of graphs with our data. So the first one is going to be a box and whisker. And so the great thing about a box and whisker is I can look here and know that these numbers are more spread out than these numbers. There is a quarter of your data is here, a quarter of your data is here, a quarter of your data is there, and a quarter of your data is there. So you really know within that quarter of a data how spread out it is. So when you graph a box and whiskers, you're going to start with a median, so I need my middle number. And then you have your extremes, so my lowest number and my highest number. But then from my lowest to the median, I find the median again. So this is the median of this lower set of data. And then for the upper set of data, I find my median again. So essentially, you're finding a median 3 times. The median of all of it, the median of the lower half, the median of the upper half, and then you just kind of do your lines here to connect your box and out to the whiskers. Next, we're going to do histograms. And to do a histogram, you might call it kind of like a bar graph. The thing with histograms, though, is that you always have a frequency on the y-axis. So number of students is a frequency, how many. So this is never going to measure like height or something. This has to be how many of something occurred. Okay. On your x-axis, you're always going to go in equal width intervals. So these are all intervals of 20. Notice there's no gap between the columns. Okay, and typically first off you make a frequency distribution, and so that might look, so you would maybe start with your, these would be your x's, your widths, so 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, and then you make tallies, like maybe we had a 4, then we had an 8, then we had a 5, then we had a 14, and you make these tallies for how often something occurs, and you use those tallies then. This side is your frequency. So I know that's kind of quick. We will do an example of all of these in class, so all I ask is that you have the basics written down. What are your notes that you need to remember about each one? Another thing on this one, always remember your labels, and then you should have a title to your graph. So let me know if you have any questions. We will do our examples in class and then be done with Chapter 7. Exciting times. We'll see you in class.